Hi, I'm Steve Isant. Surf City Theater is pleased to bring you our Directors Seminar, which was filmed via Zoom on August 20th. Four of Surf City Theater's best directors, J.P. Driscoll, Regan Floria McCarley, Nikki Parsons, and Perry Shields, all give you their insight and observations on how they direct the plays in which they are the director. What do they look for during the audition process? Something every actor wants to know. How do they come up with their ideas to block or position the actors for each scene on the stage? How do they handle a difficult actor? And do they ever make adjustments to the play during the show's run? All of these subjects and other great insights asked and answered during this 48-minute seminar. Yep, this is a long one, but it's worth it. So get a beverage of your choice, settle back, and watch and enjoy four great directors discuss their craft. You can't come see us, so we are bringing this to you in the safety and comfort of your own home. Introductions have just finished, and now it's time for questions. So let's get started.
Thank you.
Perry, thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to go to the questions now, and for those of you that are our guests, we have a couple of questions already, but if you want to be thinking about a question, go ahead and type it. The first question that we have actually, I think, is most appropriate for Lisa. So Lisa, if you would turn your camera back on.
Unmute and camera. Okay.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. So here's the question.
I'm glad I hadn't gotten my pajamas on.
All right, here's the question. I just got my MFA from Tisch and had some feedback from a few artistic directors in New York City to find a director to work with. Here's the question. How do you all decide which projects to do and who you want to work with? So I think that's a Lisa question.
Well, it's become more collaborative since we have board. When it was at the beginning, I had Frank as my partner, and we just arbitrarily made decisions without knowing what the heck we were doing. And then when he quit, we started the board. And so pretty much it's, I think there was a couple years where I just kind of went with things. I took ideas from subscribers of shows they liked and things, and just kind of did some research. And I spent days upon days down at Samuel French reading shows. It was my favorite thing in the world. I drove by there the other day and was so sad it's gone. But anyway, and then now we have our play development committee, and so they get together to decide, you know, to help us decide on the plays. But I don't know, we kind of work together as a board and talk about a lot, you know, who we see as a director, who we would like to talk to about things like that. And then we don't have a huge stable of people to pull from. So that's why we were looking at developing new directors and things too. So it wasn't always trying to go back to the same people that never got a break. But really, I think I don't really know necessarily a true answer, like this is how you go about getting your talent. This is how you go about. I've been fortunate that people have found us. You know, I mean, like JP, you know, he just found us by coming to a show one day. I didn't go actively find him. So sometimes we get very fortunate just by people showing up. And it just kind of developed from there. We knew very few people. Frank had some contacts when we first started. So we had like a couple directors that had to do everything. And then I don't even think we really had a stage manager until we got Nikki for A Christmas Carol. I think she was our first stage manager. So it's like, it's more just along the lines of the luck of the draw and just keeping the avenue open for creatives, I think. Right?
Lisa, the other part of that was half of the question. The other half is how do we select our projects? And so would you share about our various subcommittees, specifically Michael's?
Well, I touched on it briefly, but the play development committee is chaired by Michael Thorpe on our board, who is also our technical director. And they basically, we kind of give them parameters as like, we want, you know, something really big, or we want, you know, some funny, or we'd like something that's thoughtful, but also has a funny storyline, you know, which is where like Making God Laugh came from. There was a lot of real tender, you know, points. Tribute was kind of the same way. You know, so I don't know. I think The productions just kind of get decided on by us. Through the committee, Michael Thorpe now, and then they read it and then they give us ideas and then we all kind of decide together as a board. So did I not answer that?
No, I think that's a good answer. The only embellishment that I would add is we do have some the subcommittee does have some guidelines, sort of working backwards. The Christmas show always does have to have some sort of Christmas or holiday theme.
Right.
Traditionally, the third show in the fall, we have reserved as our, you call it our dark show, our serious show. The two in the spring are, generally more happy and uplifting. And so
I usually like to start this season with a real strong show so that we start off, with everybody just getting a really good show, like 12 Angry Jurors or something like that. And then, yeah, to your point, I mean, then we kind of, I guess we've decided kind of parameters. I guess it wasn't really ever discussed, but it is kind of how we do it now. We do the darker or the more serious show in our fall show. And
also,
so, yeah.
As we're going along, set design is becoming more and more of a deciding factor. Lisa in particular, for those of you who don't know, Lisa's hands down favorite part of theater is designing the set.
Yes.
What this set looks like, and can it look different than whatever we had recently? Yeah, exactly, Diana. So I remember a big deciding factor for doing Steel Magnolias was Lisa was so excited that it was going to be a salon and not another living room. So finding the balance visually as well as comedically, emotionally is also a big decision for the board.
Okay, we're getting some. We need to move on. We're getting some good questions coming in.
Good.
Let me ask.
I'd like to answer that Patrick's question, if that's okay.
I'm sorry, say again?
I can see some of the chat questions, but I can see some of them. I don't know, but there is one question I'd like to answer. If
which one is that?
the does the intimacy of the smaller theater question?
Sure, go ahead.
I don't know if we're supposed to. Are we supposed to be reading the questions? I don't know.
So Regan, as moderator, let me go ahead and read the questions, and then the various directors can chime in as they want.
Sure.
Okay, so that particular question, here's the question. Does the intimacy of the small theater, i.e. the one that we have, make the director's job easier or harder? So Regan, go ahead.
I find this question super interesting, which is why I would love to answer this question. I think it could go either way, but I think that really depends on the actors that you have, because the vulnerability of the actors that you have can change everything. And in a small space, if you don't have actors that you're working with that are willing to be vulnerable and feel the space, then it changes how the audience it feels, right? So if they're afraid of the space, if they're afraid of how close the audience is, and they're like, ugh, like kind of in the audience's face because they're afraid that they're too close, like they're really loud because they're used to being in a very big theater, right? Then the audience feels a bit attacked. And then if they get quiet because they think, oh, because they're so close to my face, then it's then you're trying to pull out of them. But if you have actors that can just be vulnerable and intimate and relax into a smaller theater and feel the intimacy and the vulnerability, they make our job easier because they make that space the most beautiful and incredible opportunity, and they can make the Black Box 99-seat theater the most incredible theater to work in. It can be the most amazing experience for an actor and for a director that you've ever had. You can take a huge show and put it in that space and make it the most magical experience anybody's ever had, and like hit them right where they've never felt anything before, I think.
Thank you, Reagan. Any other directors want to add on to that?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what Reagan said. I also I've found that if it can, if an intimacy scene isn't working, it may not be the actors so much as my bad blocking. And there are times where for one reason or another I've misblocked the moment. I like to think of when I'm directing a show that each individual moment is like a picture frame, and you're seeing a whole bunch of picture frames in succession. And it doesn't matter at the size of the theater so much as if we can actually capture the moment. But all it really does come down to for a director is good casting. And there is a real, for me, the most stressful time is casting a show.
Well, I do have a casting question coming up later, but I'll ask you to hold off on that. Perry or Nikki, do you want to build on this one, or shall we move on?
Well, no, I think that I look at it like there are certain shows that are suited to a small space and others that really need a big space. But I personally, my experience is totally in small spaces. I've never directed on a huge stage in a 500-seat theater. That scares me. Like, I mean, just never having done it. But I think that it's not a question of easier or harder. I think it would be harder if you have 20 people in an intimate space. Definitely, it's more challenging. If you have 5 people in an intimate space, that's great. But again, it depends on the. I like what John said about bad blocking. You really, and especially in that space in Hermosa, you have to constantly, as a director, be moving around to look at sight lines, and gee, if they're there, will these people on audience left not see this? Like that's a little difficult sometimes, but it's all part of the process. And bottom line is, I much prefer intimate space to a big giant one.
Nikki, anything to add?
Yeah, agree with everything that everybody said so far. The thing for me for the tiny space versus the 500-seat space, every audience member is basically a cast member at Surf City because you are so very close. And the shining example of this is Sherry, the lady we get our furniture from, is there every opening night and such a vocal audience member. And it's gotten to the point where the cast, especially the actors who come back every show, are like, is Sherry here tonight? Because Sherry, she laughs. You can hear every comment she makes. In Plaza Suites in particular, there was one scene where an actor went to pick up a chair to throw it through a window, and the entire audience and the entire cast on stage and everyone backstage heard Sherry go, not the pretty chair. And moments like that, when you have such a tiny space, every audience reaction, whether it's laughing or crying or involuntary commentary, really becomes part of the performance for the actors.
Thank you, Nikki. Lisa, this next question is for you. Those of you that work at Surf City full-time, what are you currently doing to live? Parenthesis, pay off the bills, close paren. You got to unmute yourself.
That I'm muted.
There you go.
Nobody at Surf City gets paid if there's not a show happening. So we're all doing what we always were doing, just more time to do it. Yeah, nobody on the board, myself, anybody really gets paid. The people who get paid are the skilled labor, like their directors, the stage managers, costumers, hair and makeup, technical directors, people like that have to get something, but they're the only people that have pay. And so there's no payments going out to anybody while we are not doing any shows. So I'm Ubering, which is what I was doing anyway. So, but yeah, we don't really have any outgoing expenses really, other than insurance and basic upkeep of things while we're not doing shows.
Thank you, Lisa.
Now,
All right.
also, Lisa doesn't
What?
get. I'd like to point out that Lisa doesn't get paid. Like, her existence is subsidized by her husband, and then
My poor husband.
We actually owe him money. All right, this next question is an excellent one, and it's for all 4 directors. Here's the question. Have you ever felt like you miscast someone in your show, and how do you deal with that? JP, let's take you first.
Yeah, there have been times where I've felt as though I've miscast someone, and then I've proven myself wrong. And other times I was absolutely sure that this person was the right actor, and then I've proven myself wrong. For me, with the nature of theater, the choices that a director makes are the choices 9 times out of 10 that you're going to have to live with. So the most important thing that a director can do is to do their homework ahead of time and have a very solid understanding of the show that they're about to undertake. So that going into casting, they have absolute 100% knowledge of each character that they want for the show, so that when they see this possibility in front of them of auditions, they're getting the closest idea of what they're going to have moving forward. And then through the rehearsal process, you're trying to get to your idea by the time you open. And or you're also taking what the actors are giving you and creating this journey and getting there. But you can do one of many things. You can either say, oh geez, I've miscast this person and I'm going to suffer for the month or the 10 days that I have to rehearse, or you can take it as an opportunity to create something new and enjoy it for what it is. And there have been many times where on day 2 I've been very, very worried and up awake at night, and then I swear to God, by the time we've opened, a miracle has happened, and it's been some of the most rewarding, fulfilling experiences that I've ever had with someone who has gone 100 yards in a very short amount of time to create a character that I didn't expect to come out of the actor. So there are times where people have been miscast, and most of the time it's been my fault. And but I will say that actors do surprise you, and many times in positive ways.
Thank you, JP. Nikki, thoughts?
I would agree. I think there's 2 ways of considering someone miscast. One is in terms of professionalism, and where if you give someone a part and it has a ton of lines and it turns out they can't memorize the lines, and then you're like, oh God. And then the other version of miscasting is if you have an artistic vision and they start going that way. So I think the second option in terms of an artistic miscast is to let go of your vision a little bit and be more collaborative about where do you see this going. Because like JP said, a lot of times you'll end up with something really interesting that you never thought of. In terms of the professionalism side, it's a little different for me because I'm a teacher in real life, and I have a hard time letting go of that mentality of well, I'll just keep nurturing you, and I'll keep nurturing you, and eventually you'll get there. And sometimes they don't. So then you have to be the boss and have the hard conversation of, I love you, I appreciate you, this is not working. But most of the time when that happens, they don't feel good either. So it's not firing someone against their will, it's saying, we both know this is not going well and you don't want to go on stage like this, so we're gonna stop here and replace you. And the one time I had a really big issue with that, I got an actor to step in who was phenomenal and so talented and so professional, had an accent right away, was off book before most of the cast who'd been there for weeks. And so it was just divine intervention. It worked out fabulously. But everybody was stressing for that 2 or 3 weeks. It worked out well for me, but it was definitely a learning experience for me in terms of nurturing versus professionalism, I guess.
Thank you, Nikki. Regan? Regan, any comments to add?
I mean, really, I feel that JP and Nikki covered most of it. I mean, JP, I ride right along with you in most of your sentiments. And I think it's the hardest thing as a director because you get married to your cast right away. And unfortunately, I mean, in the community theater world, which is what we're here to talk about, you know, we're working with people who we're all volunteering, you know, and that's a different, it's a different kind of commitment, right? So we're not signing contracts and we're not being paid. We're working from the heart, and we're all giving of our time from sheer desire and heart and will. We're all taking this out of our day jobs, and that's a different thing. So you can't, at a certain point, you can't abuse people. You can't, you have to be kind, and you have to realize where their work ethic is coming from. And so even if you've miscast somebody, they're there because they love it, and you have to realize that, and you have to be kind, and you have to be willing to teach along the way. And so I know that I've done a lot of shows where you have to learn how people learn as well, and you try to teach them in the best way that they can be taught, and you can only teach to a certain point. And if the rest of the cast is suffering because one cast member just can't get it, at a certain point, you're going to have to release, work on the rest, and then somehow kind of come back to this. If it's a main character, then that's where you're going to have to take some extra time, like on your own time. You're going to have to do some privates. You're going to have to figure out how to take your 2 leads and, work on with them separately. You're going to have to figure out a different way to teach. So as a director, if they're not doing what you want them to do, then maybe you're not saying it the way that they need to hear it. Then maybe you need to figure out a different way to teach. So that would be my one little
Thank you, Regan. Perry, any comments to add?
Yeah, no, just a little thing that I haven't heard anyone mention specifically. I've had about 3 or 4 instances over the last 9 years I started directing about 13 years ago. So I can say in 13 years, I've had about 4 instances where I didn't feel like I miscast based on like them fitting the role. But, actors can put on a good show at an audition, and you can be sold on their audition and their reading. But like the other directors have said, you start to smell trouble a couple weeks in when they're not memorizing lines. And there comes a tipping point where you go, it's either now or never. Either I replace them now, or I trust them, like Regan said, you try different tactics to get them to get more up to speed, or whatever it takes to get them to get where they need to be. And in only one case, and Lisa knows of this one well, it was not at Surf City, but I had to ask an actor to leave mid-run, and I assumed his role because he was sort of actively sabotaging the production at that point. I don't think he was miscast in terms of talent. It was just other issues. But the other times was all based on memorization issues and them making it difficult for the other cast members. And I regretted the casting on that basis alone, not on their look or even their acting ability, but the fact that, you know, they bit off maybe more than they could chew. And I kind of kicked myself for not maybe recognizing it earlier. So that happens.
Thank you, Perry. All right, so just as the moderator, maybe a little bit of housekeeping here. We're it's 7:48, and we've got 4 more questions. So I would ask our very articulate directors if they could keep their answers in the future, maybe just a little shorter so that we can get to all these questions, because besides the 4 questions that I have lined up, I've got a couple of questions, but I'm going to save those to the last. So here's the next one. And then Lisa, we're glad you're here because this next one is, what plans do you have to increase the base of supporters/donors? Other ideas for fundraising? Or is increasing financial support not a big issue at this time?
Increasing income is always an issue. I don't know if we have any new different ways of doing it. I think we need to get more efficient at the ways that we have to increase by being better within the community that we are in, as far as so many people still don't know that we're there. Finding a way to really expand our just visibility, I think is a big thing. Fundraising is something we talk about a lot with the board, but we don't really have a lot of options or a lot of ideas for new things. We're trying some stuff, but I don't really know if we have any real plans in order. We're always looking for ways to increase funding, to increase donors, to increase subscribers. That's why we do the 2 free guest passes so that they can introduce more people to Surf City, to our subscribers and things. I don't really know. I don't know if we have anything specific. I mean, you guys know as well as I, Nikki and Steve, as far as that goes, because we talk about it at the board meetings, but I don't think we have anything new on the horizon. And right now I'm not in a place where I feel we can really just ask people to donate to us, because I don't know when we're starting again. I don't know what we're doing or when we're doing it. So we're just trying to stay active and moving forward. But I don't know if we have.
All right, Lisa, we're glad you're here because this next question is for you as well. What modifications do you guys think will happen in post-COVID in the theater?
Well, this also goes back to a lot of the surveys we did, which I'm assuming this is more from one of the subscribers on the call. But, like I explained in the email I sent out, we don't really know when we're going to be able to start again. We don't know what exactly is going to be in place as far as vaccines, as far as things like that goes. I'm hopeful that if we have to stay social distancing, that I would somehow be able to squeeze out into another weekend, because my big thing is that if we have to social distance, we can't open up theater, not our theater anyway. Because if I cannot sell tickets, our subscriber base does not pay for our season. It only covers about half of the 50,000 we need. And so the other half has to come from donations and ticket sales. And if I can only seat my subscribers, because everybody has to seat 6 feet apart, then I can't open up again. So there's just a lot of things that are up in the air. And, a lot of things are just kind of waiting for more information, really, too. We don't know. But I don't feel comfortable fundraising in an atmosphere where people aren't working, where people don't have a lot of money. I'm happy if people feel like they can contribute something. We're keeping that in a coffer for that when we're able to get started again, we've got the money to pay the rights and get things up and going, which, we wouldn't have otherwise. And then I'm just hoping for some good news soon that I can announce and say, hey, we're going to open by June of next year or something. I just don't know. And fundraising can't really come into effect as far as I'm concerned, really, until we're all in a better place. I just don't feel comfortable asking people for money unless they just want to out of the goodness of their heart.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, so this next question is a great question. It's someone from someone who shall remain nameless, but that you all know. And so here it is. And again, please keep your answers a little bit more concise because we're starting to run out of
Sorry.
time. As directors, how would you advise in dealing with headstrong / difficult / challenging actors in a positive, collaborative way, but without sacrificing your overall vision of the show? And with that, Perry, what do you say?
And could you repeat the question? That was kind of a meaty question.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, you've already talked about it before, but as directors,
Uh-huh.
how would you advise in dealing with headstrong / difficult / challenging actors in a positive, collaborative way, but without sacrificing your overall vision of the show?
Are you talking about my husband?
Yeah, I have to go back and, I mean, I'll keep this short, but I think Regan answered that very well. I mean, there's this, you don't want to, there's something that's very important in a show, and that's sort of the esprit de corps, the morale. The worst thing is to be in a production where you feel tense, or you feel like a fight's going to break out any minute, or an actor and director are barely concealing their animosity. Like you can't really work in that environment. So if that's the case, you just have to deal with it like, as diplomatically and hopefully privately as possible. It's just not do anything in the open. I think that in that case, it's all about taking the person aside. And again, as a director, you got to lay down the law and say, this has to change, or we'll have to move, as they say in Hollywood, move in another direction. But,
Regan?
No, I mean, I think that, yeah, just like what Perry said. I mean, I think that one thing it's really important to say always for me as a director, and this is something that I had to learn the hard way, I think by hurting feelings and getting my own feelings hurt just over the years, was learning to say, look, and I direct in a different way. I mean, Nikki knows that. I mean, I think that I'm a different kind of director. I approach things differently. I know I come in a way of like, all theaters, music and dance. And I'm just a very different kind of a director. But I do have a philosophy of, at least try it. Just try it my way. If you don't like it, that's okay. But at least try it. And I will try it your way, but you don't know unless you try it. And that's the hardest thing for some people to do, because they get a vision in their head and they're like, that's going to suck. That's not going to work. I'm not going to try that. I'm going to look foolish. I'm going to look stupid. That's going to sound dumb. My kids do that with me all the time because they're actresses too. And they instantly see it in their head and they're going to be like, that's not going to work. It's not going to be, and like, how do you know unless you try it? Like, it's not, I mean, I understand that your vision isn't going to, that you don't think it's going to work, but I think that's how sometimes with the more headstrong people are, and Lauren and I battle with that a lot. It's just like, well, let's at least, let's be a little bit moldable. Let's at least try that. For me, with the more headstrong people are, that's the easier way to work it.
That sounds good. Thank you. JP?
Generally, I give them blocking and tell them where to stand, and listen to them intently, and then give them more blocking and tell them where to stand. I've acted more than I've directed, but I've also, as an actor, dealt with a lot of headstrong actors that have thrown the wrench into the machine and slowed down the process. And as an actor, it's very frustrating to watch another actor just knock the ship off course. So as a director, I have very little tolerance for that. And I'm 6'4" and 300 pounds, and I understand that. And there's no situation where a guy my size can get heated or anything. So I very I say, okay, this is very important. We're going to get back to blocking the show, and I try to get the show blocked in less than a week or a week and a half as part of the beginning of my rehearsal period. I think I got it in just under 2 weeks with Surf City. And part of the reason why is I want my actors very much to stay as busy as possible, because with idleness, they can kind of start to get really good ideas that can gum up the works. So I tend to not like, I hear that question, and it's not that I rule with an iron fist and don't allow collaboration or anything like that. It's just that there's a vision, and I think that, you know, you gotta keep the wheels going.
Yes.
Thank you, JP. Nikki, comments to add?
Yeah, I come from working with kids most often, so it's really easy because I am the teacher. You do what I say or you fail the class. But I do it at 11 and supporting. Like, I think a lot of times I could be replaced with a button that says why. Like, every time someone says, I want to do this. Okay, why? I may agree with you when you're done. How you manipulate has such a bad connotation, but how you manipulate the people that you're collaborating with and actors, it's different every time, and it's something I'm still trying to figure out as a director. When we did A Few Good Men, it was a huge cast of and a military show, so I was a bit of a drill sergeant, and I treated them like I treated my students. Steel Magnolias was lovely women, and we just talked everything out, and it was great. Deadly Game, I was the youngest person in the room, and so it was different for me trying to figure out how to handle a cast that's older than me, and so it's something I'm still working on. Try to make people think it's their idea sometimes, and then sometimes you just have to lay down the law and say no, or you're failing.
Thank you, Nikki. All right, so one statement and then one question, then I'm going to suggest that we wrap it up. So I've not been naming names as the questions come up, but I am in this case because this is from Diana Mann. She's using this to audition for her next part. I just love the honesty and openness of this forum. I've worked with all of you, and I admire you all and your many talents. So Diana, whatever you want for the next show, there you go.
The lead, of course.
All right, so
The lead. You got it, girl.
Last
You
question
got
is
it.
mine, and that is, and this is for all the directors, not some long answers, please, but precise and concise. What are the do's and don'ts of auditioning? Because every actor wants to know that because they want to nail that part. Regan, please, first.
The do's and don'ts of auditioning.
One don't.
Don't argue with me. Right? I mean, like, just take direction well, but don't, don't argue in the audition. If somebody asks you to do something, to the best of your ability, try to be as moldable as possible, right there in the room.
Yep.
Nikki?
Do have fun if you're playing with the other actors, and even if you're a little off topic, but you're bringing a good energy and making the other people around you upbeat, great. Don't be a jerk to anyone. I actually picked this up from another director that I worked for years ago. He would plant the stage manager in the lobby, and then at the end of auditions, ask the stage manager who the assholes were. And so you want to be nice to everybody because you never know who's going to have a say in casting.
Absolutely.
Okay, JP.
Well, I was such language, Nikki. I was just thrown. I would say, don't swear in an audition. No. Gosh, pass. No, I would say don't apologize. That's one thing that I constantly see. Don't apologize. Don't ever go in and do a part or do a monologue or read a script and then with your body language say I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to waste your time, because it could be the best audition we've seen all day. And, and then you were like, why didn't you like it? We loved it. You know,
Yeah.
what was wrong? So don't apologize.
Thank you, JP. Perry,
Don't perform something you wrote, okay? And don't bring props. Lisa and I think were in an audition where this actress was determined that she had to have her phone ring and she was going to answer her phone as part of the audition. And we're like, she's off to the side. We're going, go ahead, we're ready. Oh, wait a minute. I'm trying to get my phone to, and she's like,
Oh, no.
and I was like, no, not gonna,
Yeah.
no.
Thank you, Perry.
Kind of like use precision. Go in, read your monologue, get out. Come in, read the scene with the other actors. Great, thank you. Leave. Don't be extemporaneous on like telling the directors about what you've done, and I'll just do your business and get out, and that's it.
thank
Yes.
you, Perry. All right, so directors and Lisa, I'm going to ask each of you to just do a few closing words of wisdom or advice that you could leave us with, and then we will depart for the evening.
Okay.
All right, so Lisa first, any last words?
I don't know. I think a lot of the things that they were saying were exactly what we wanted to hear tonight. Expanding on auditioning specifically, it really does need to be handled much more professionally. I've been involved in all of the auditionings of every show we've done, and it's amazing to me how many times people come unprepared. They are trying a brand new monologue for the first time and they're stumbling all over the place. Know your monologue, be prepared. Don't bring in a bunch of papers and stuff and throwing it all around. You know, it's like sometimes I'm just, where are they coming from? So really just, you know, it's a professional moment. Work it that way and know that whoever's sitting there at the audition watching you is paying attention to everything, you know, to the fact that you have to have a prop. I'm so glad you brought that up, Perry, because it's happened so many times and it is very distracting when you're just trying to focus. And then be prepared to work with the director if they want you to see something else. Don't get so married to how you're going to do your monologue or your audition that you are not open to suggestions, because that is something that many directors I've been in with auditions like to see how people take direction. And they may have loved your monologue the way you did it, but they want to see if you can change it up quickly. So be prepared for that. I think that's important as well in the audition. That's it.
Thank you.
Have fun, really.
Okay, Nikki, any last words for our audience?
There's a poster that I saw once that said, everything I learned that mattered, I learned in kindergarten. And then really big at the top was play well with others. And I think that is really theater for me. We are here for fun. Like Regan said, we're doing this for passion. Nobody's getting paid. Even the people who are getting paid.
Not really.
Yeah. And theater is such a tiny community. Like Perry and Diana hit on it in particular. Everyone who works in the area, we work with someone who knows them. So
Right.
there's really been times where I remember once Lisa was looking for a new director and threw out a name of someone who'd contacted her, and someone in a show that Regan directed actually was like, "Oh no, I worked with them once. They're very rude." We're like, "Okay, well, we're not going to work here then." So you want to play well with others because it's a small.
Word will get around.
Perry, any last words?
No, I mean, I didn't want to be negative all night and talk about what don't to do and but I just echo, theater should be fun. If it's not fun, you're doing it wrong. If you're not having a good time, you're doing it wrong. So, you know, always have fun.
JP.
I will say that the best enjoyment I ever have is showing up on time.
Oh, amen.
Because
Regan. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry.
oh, no, it's okay. I like math. I'm one of those crazy people. May the force be with you. But it's one of those things, like if you have 10 people in your cast and you're a minute late, you're actually 10 minutes late because you're dealing with 10 people. So by showing up in time, you're honoring the whole process. So when you know, and if not, call your stage manager, because it's an amazing thing when you have a stage manager as good as Nikki.
Regan?
Yeah, just do your part and be a part of the family. You will get as much as you put in to everything, and that is part of this. And if you feel like you have a desire to do this, don't let anything stop you. Don't be shy. Put your whole heart into it and have an unwavering belief in yourself and in what you want to do. You're obviously on this call for a reason, and we're so glad that you came, and we're glad that you're a part of Surf City Theater Company, and that you join a part of this family and a part of what Lisa has strived so hard to create. And we're just, we're so thankful to be a part of all of this. So thank you, Lisa, for allowing us to be a part of your family.
So my apologies, I said that was the last word. I did miss one question, and in fairness to the question asker, if each of you in 20 seconds or less. And the question is, assuming you attend each performance, do you ever make adjustments mid-show, or once it's on, it's on? Perry?
20 seconds or less.
All right, 22.
Okay. And I'm gonna wait. So have someone else go.
All right, JP.
No, as soon as the show is open, I give it to the stage manager. It's in the name. They manage the stage. It's the actors are a family, and I give it away.
Reagan?
JP, plug your ears. Plug your ears. Yes. Shh. I do what it's the total controlling nature in my personality. It's horrible. And it only on a very rare occasion, if I knew that something dire was going to happen and I knew that something absolutely had to be changed, then I would, but that would be the most rarest occasion if something were to happen. Then I would.
Nikki?
95% of the time, no. But if someone's climbing a wall, I will go backstage and say, don't climb the wall next time.
There you go. I'm with Nikki's answer.
All right, very good. All right, so.
Yeah, basically that's it. I fall right in line with those guys. I was just curious to hear what they said, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to, a show is your baby when you're a director, and it's really hard to just walk away and it's like, I'm not going to watch it grow up. I'm just gonna end it when it's 2, So yeah, I just think it's hard. I know some directors who can just walk away and that's it, but it's hard. I can't.
Thank you, Perry. All right, so that's it for the evening. To our guests, thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully you learned a little and had some entertainment as well. To our directors, to Lisa, thank you so much for literally years of experience in those answers. So again, my thanks to everyone, and